We are going live on YouTube.
Thanks. And welcome to another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on the Staples Network, the show that provides research and statistics all about the Detroit and Michigan sports teams, whether fans like it or not. And the text exposes and reveals actual and hidden facts and truth that the mainstream media doesn't want you to know. I'm Taylor Phillips. Follow me on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at DT2Phillips. I'm alongside Frank Vashner right now. Follow him on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at Frank_Vashner. Hopefully Ed Smith will join us too. Follow him on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at EdSmith313. Follow the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at Michigan_Truth. Also like its Facebook page, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Check out its website, the MichiganSportsTruthPodcast.com, and scour the Staples Network's YouTube channel. Also like the Staples Network on Facebook. Also check out its website, primetimewiththestaplesnetwork.com, and follow it on Twitter at Staples Network and on Instagram at the Staples Network. Plus listen to it on Spreaker Live, iHeartRadio, Spotify, CastBox, Deezer, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Blog Talk Radio. Also, we are broadcast live on YouTube. The disclaimer reads, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast does not represent or defame any of the teams it covers, nor does it represent or compete against any of the mainstream media in the state of Michigan. It is also not for entertainment or debating purposes. If you want to debate, take it elsewhere. We only detect, expose, and reveal honest, actual, and hidden facts and statistics about them because the truth is out there. So we have a lot to talk about as we still wait for Ed Smith to join us. Hopefully he will. We got lots of Lions to talk about, lots of Tigers to talk about. We may have to go like 5 to 10 minutes per topic, per team, actually. Red Wings involve news, including the rumors about Jeff Blashill, their head coach. Max Bultman criticizing most of Steve Yzerman's moves thus far in 1 year. And Dylan Larkin's negative comments about not wanting to be in the NHL All-Star game, and Brian Burke ripping him. Also got to talk about the Pistons, the injury bug biting Luke Kennard and Blake Griffin, and some Andre Drummond trade rumors. Also got some college basketball and college football to talk about. And hopefully Ed Smith will still join us a little bit later on to talk about that kind of stuff, including Donovan Peoples-Jones and Cesar Ruiz, two Wolverines entering the NFL draft, and Nico Collins deciding to stay at U of M. But first off, speaking of football, we read the day after our last episode that Amazon founder Jeff Bezos is indeed interested in buying the Lions, who finished 3-12-1 and finished with the third overall pick heading into the 2020 NFL draft. Now, Frank, before we get into other topics in terms of the Lions, you read the article. We also found out that the Ford family might not sell the team until Martha Ford passes away, and Jeff Bezos might in fact buy the team from then owner in the futuristically Bill Ford Jr. So, Frank, have you discovered any analysis from that article on CBS Sports on the app?
Well, one thing I did discover was that the reason why they can't sell while Martha Ford is still alive is due to tax reasons, that they would be hit pretty heavily under tax laws with having to pay all these penalties and stuff. So they have to wait. Now, as for Jeff Bezos buying a team. I mean, I can only hope that this actually happens, for one, because everyone knows how bad the Ford family is at owning the team and making the decisions. And we don't need to keep beating that dead horse over and over again. So we can only hope that it happens. When will it? Probably after Martha Ford passes away. Now, for the record, don't be wishing that. Let's be decent human beings here.
Yep.
I think probably, I'll say within probably the next 5 years it'll happen. I'm just taking a guess at that. And hopefully that there is some different ownership down the road and better decisions do get made with this football team.
Yeah. I had the conversation about it with Ed Smith. Speaking of which, and Urinating Tree, our special guest in our last episode, that Jeff Bezos is not so much hands-on, more hands-off as a sports owner, I think.
And Taylor, I will admit that being hands-off is actually a good thing. Okay, having a franchise where the owner owns, the president presides, GM manages, and everybody just does what they're supposed to do, and you don't have any blurring of the lines, that's the most effective way to go. Because if you get owners who are too hands-on, you end up what you have in places like the Dallas Cowboys, where Jerry Jones is all hands-on with everything. It has his nose in places that it doesn't belong. Or with the Washington Redskins, with Dan Snyder. Now, that being said, Bezos, if he's a hands-off guy, then I'm all for him coming aboard and buying the team.
Yep, that's true. Yeah, and that's, like you pointed out, it is a good thing. So I guess hopefully Jeff Bezos buys the team in the near future. We also heard that the Ford family actually might hang on to the Lions until later this calendar year, and before they sell the team to Jeff Bezos. That was on the No Filter Sports podcast with Eli Zara and Bob Page. I don't know if you listened to that episode on that podcast before, but those guys may have a valid point, Frank.
Yeah, I didn't happen to give that a list too, but I'm still going to go with what I have heard and pretty much any research I've done is that if the Ford family wants to avoid being hit with a bunch of tax penalties, then it's going to have to be until after Martha Ford passes away.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. The question is when. That's a fact. So speaking of the Lions themselves, like I mentioned before, they finished 3-12-1. They got the 3rd overall pick. They're in line for it. There have been 2 big names that have been popped up that entered the NFL draft. Ohio State defensive end Chase Young and Alabama quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. Tagovailoa is how it's spelled. Not sure if that's the correct pronunciation for it, but he's available for the Lions. If they get him, then it signifies maybe it could be the end for Matthew Stafford. Either that, or they might use Tua Tagovailoa as a backup quarterback. That there's plenty of option. There's options out there for those Lions.
Well, to your point, Taylor, with regards to Tua Tagovailoa, the smart thing to do for the Lions would be, if he is available, to go ahead, take him and sit him behind Stafford for a year. Let Stafford kind of groom him and take him under his wing and act as a mentor. And then when the time is ready, when Stafford has a year or 2 left on his deal, you trade him and then you hand the keys to Tua and make him your starter. And I know people are going to say, oh, well, he's injury prone because of his hip injury. Look, name me one quarterback in the NFL who is not injury prone. I'll hang up and listen. You can't find one. Injuries happen. Some of them are freak accidents. It's just how it is. So hopefully now granted, I do hope to see his medicals come out. Since he did have to have hip surgery to repair a broken hip, and that everything went smooth and his recovery goes smooth, so he's available. Now, as for Chase Young, it sounds like the Redskins are probably in on him unless they do something so incredulously stupid, which has happened in the past, but they are getting a new front office in Washington. So who knows what happens on that end? I mean, if Tua's there, you take him. If Chase Young's there, take him. Don't pass on either one of them if you're Bob Quinn. But even then, I still have my doubts.
Well, the Lions only have one draft pick in this round, and it's only number 3. So you have to take either one of them. You can't take both.
Well, yeah, I mean that's what I was saying. If one of them is there, take whichever one is there. Now, I don't think they both will be there. That's highly unlikely. So I just say if one of them is there, take them. Don't pass on one if one is still there, which again, I'm kind of worried that Bob Quinn might do, as evidences by his drafting in the past. But only time will tell.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I thought you were saying that don't pass up on either one of them. I thought you meant as in take them both.
Now, granted, if they were able to land both, then I would just be like, holy smokes, what did
if they were allowed to by the NFL.
Yeah, or if the Redskins basically just said, we're going to trade you our first round pick for your second round pick. But again, that's basically the most ludicrous scenario I can think of. That would never happen.
Yeah, I know. That would never happen. So the Lions have fired 6 assistant coaches, including special teams coach John Bonamego. Hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back no more. And then defensive coordinator Paul Pasqualoni has stepped down. And we spotted an article from The Athletic headlining the 16 possible candidates for the next Lions defensive coordinator. Frank, do you want to bring them up? I don't know if you got that pulled up.
Was it sent in our group chat? I'm gonna have to dig for that real quick, so just bear with me.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm digging it up too. Let's see here. Paul Pasqualoni stepped away. There it is. So the 16 possible candidates. Reading on the Athletic app. Yep. Good.
Yeah, it said Steve Gregory, who's a defensive assistant and with the Lions, but of course he had a stint with the New England Patriots. And let's see, Gerard Mayo, who's their linebackers coach, Brendan Daly, Chiefs D-line coach, and then trying to see if there's any other familiar names that I would recognize offhand. Brett Bielema, who was the head coach at the University of Wisconsin for a short time. I didn't even realize he was with the Pats as their D-line coach. So who knows what could happen there. Even Wade Phillips, who has been around the NFL for a long time. I know he coached in Dallas. He was the D coordinator in Denver, I think the year they won the Super. It was either the year they got the Super Bowl and lost, or either the year they won it. And he's currently the Rams defensive coordinator, but
he got fired.
Yeah. Yeah, but the thing is, it says his contract is, this was written, his contract was expiring. So I would say at the time this was written, I'd say, I don't know if he was renewed or not, but the thing is, he's 72, and would he want to go around more in the NFL? Let's see, D'Amico Ryans, a linebackers coach with the 49ers. Chris Richard, although his name's actually Chris Richard's name has come up as a head coaching role. And let's see, a few others. John Pagano, the Texans outside linebackers coach. Here's an interesting one. Jim Leonard, who's the defensive coordinator at the University of Wisconsin. But I think he's a defensive genius, but truthfully, I think he might be looking for a college head coaching job. So we'll see. I think that's the most interesting name of the bunch. So we'll see. There's a few names on there that are interesting, but we'll see what happens. I just hope that I would prefer they not go to somebody who was a Patriots assistant or one of Matt Patricia's his mentors or friends. Get somebody outside who's gonna bring some new ideas in.
Yeah, Jim Leonard. That would be the best choice for the Lions' next defensive coordinator. So, yeah, that would be a good one, and hopefully they get him. So, that's Lions. Best of luck to them in the 2020 NFL draft. Why don't we go ahead and go ahead and transition to baseball for a little bit. The Tigers, they signed Austin Romine as catcher about a month or two ago, but they recently signed first baseman CJ Cron from the Minnesota Twins and second baseman Jonathan Schoop from the Baltimore Orioles. Each to 1 year, $6.1 million contracts. And to make room, they designated outfielder Brandon Dixon for assignment. He cleared waivers and he'll be outrated to AAA Toledo. We're going to have a What's Your Grade segment right now. CJ Cron, 253 average, 25 homers in 125 games. That signing was reported by Jeff Passan. Frank, what's your grade on Cron?
I think that this is a better signing that Al Avila's done than in recent years. Cron, I think, is actually a decent first baseman. He's not great, but he's not like bottom of the barrel or the bargain bin of him from somewhere. I'm going to give this kind of I'm leaning C+ with chance to get to a B- or higher, especially since it was only 1 year, $6.1 million, and then maybe you flip them for an asset at the trade deadline. So I think it's a good look. It's a good low risk move. They'll actually kind of give you some reward in the end. So for now, I'm giving it a C+, but I would say further down the road, it could potentially rise up to a B or higher.
I'll give it a B- just to be fair.
Yeah.
B-. Jonathan Schoop, who had a slash line of 256, 304, 473 with 23 homers in 121 games. Reported by Ken Rosenthal, got a 1 year, $6.1 million contract. What's your grade on Schoop?
I mean, this one I'm going to go a little bit higher on. I'm going to give this one a B- because Schoop, from the times I've watched Schoop, I thought he was a solid second baseman, and granted, he's an upgrade over whoever the Tigers had last season, whether it be a Jordy Mercer or whoever they trotted out there. So it's a lot better. I mean, you mentioned his slash line, 256 average. And he also hit 777 OPS as well. So I think he's a definite upgrade. Again, deal is good, 1 year, $6.1 million, and then you possibly look to flip him for assets. So I'm actually giving this one a B.
All right. Yeah, I'll give it a mid-range B too. It seems to me that the Tigers, with those two signings, I had a knee-jerk reaction that the Tigers were starting to show us and fans everywhere that they're trying to contend for a playoff spot, which probably is probably not going to happen quite yet. They still have those other young guys like Jamer Candelario, Kristen Stewart, Dawa Lugo at third base. They already got rid of Ronnie Rodriguez, who went to the Brewers. They signed Michael Fulmer to a 1 year, $2.8 million deal to avoid arbitration. They signed Alex Wilson to a relief pitcher, Alex Wilson, who returns to the team, to a 1 year deal.
I believe that's a minor league deal.
It is a minor league deal, yeah, but he's probably going to be called up anyway.
Yeah.
Just like Gordon Beckham did.
Oh, yeah. I completely forgot about him as a second baseman. So, yeah, Scope is a better option than Beckham.
Definitely a much better option than Beckham. Yeah, definitely a much better option. Yeah. So, definitely. And then the Tigers earlier today have made a trade with the Cleveland Indians. They acquired catcher Eric Haase in a trade from the Tribe for cash considerations. Eric Haase, Frank, if you've done any of the homework, you can grade it right now.
Well, I'm looking at him. He only was with the Tribe for 19 games. It was the last 2 seasons, and it was primarily in Columbus as well during the season last year. This one I think is just more of a depth move. Possibly he's going to end up playing in Toledo a lot. So I would say if he was brought up to be a starter in the MLB, this would be a very bad grade. But I'm going to give this a C- because I think he's just brought in for minor league depth.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. So, Frank, we've talked about the Lions, the ownership, and then their draft stock, including possibilities of Chase Young and Tua Tagovailoa. And then we've talked about the Tigers signings, C.J. Cron, Jonathan Scope, Eric Haase, and Alex Wilson, and Michael Fulmer avoiding arbitration. Now, the Red Wings rumors, transitioning to hockey here, we heard from an unspecified website. It's another website that says NHL trade rumors, but it's from online at nhltraderumors.me, that Jeff Blashill could be fired within the coming days by general manager Steve Yzerman. Now, I think you're the one that passed it along to us.
Yeah, I was the one that stumbled across that, and I would say I probably share that because I have been the one driving the fire Jeff Blashill bus for a while now.
I see. That's a hopeful.
Yeah.
That's hopeful.
I mean, the more, but I'll be honest with you, Taylor, the more I think about it, I would say Blashill's probably already a lame duck coach, and Steve Yzerman's probably going to let him go, whether that be in the coming weeks or at the end of the season. I think Steve will make a decision. I don't think it'll be tomorrow or the next day. it might be later because I think he realizes, yeah, this isn't working out. But of course, every time I see another NHL coach fired, like Peter Laviolette was let go from the Nashville Predators, it just still drives me nuts. It's like, Steve, how many more coaches is it going to take to get fired elsewhere for you to make a decision? And little side note, the latest I've heard is Claude Julien getting fired in Montreal after the Canadians lost to the Red Wings for the third time this year. And I just have to admit how strange it feels. Actually, the Wings are the worst team in the NHL, but yet somehow managed to beat the Montreal Canadiens, who in recent years have pummeled them by 8 goals or 10 goals.
Yeah.
This is kind of a strange but true fact for you.
In that game, Franz Nielsen, who was graded an F by Max Boltman earlier this week, scored 2 goals, including the game-tying goal. The second and third, the first and third goals, Nielsen got them on the board second period. Then he tied it up early in the third, and then Philip Zadina, the game winner, just seconds after Adam Ernie stole the puck from behind the net and made a centering pass in the slot to Zadina, who one-timed it right into the net late in the third period. And the Red Wings held on for that 4-3 victory, which probably is not going to hurt their tanking much unless they get a winning streak going. The Red Wings are still, as of right now, probably going to head into the lottery with that number 1 overall draft pick. Let's just hope to God they hang on to it dearly.
Well, for the record, the Wings currently sit at 11-30-3 with a grand total of 25 points, which is last in the NHL. The next closest teams would be the Ottawa Senators and the New Jersey Devils, who have 37.
Oh,
And then you have the LA Kings and the Anaheim Ducks, who have 38 and 39. So
I've been keeping track of all that.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there for our listeners.
Yeah, please do.
So I mean, the only way I can see them leapfrogging Ottawa and New Jersey or the bottom 2 California teams is if they string together like 5 wins in a row and any of those teams happen to lose 6 in a row. Now, that being said, the Red Wings schedule-wise, I'll see if I can pull their schedule up. They will actually be playing the Senators on Friday night at home, and then they'll play the Buffalo Sabres on Sunday. Hey, so with that being said, I think Senators is that's the game they need to lose. And then Buffalo at home on Sunday. They will go to Nassau Coliseum on Tuesday for a tilt with the New York Islanders before a Friday-Saturday back-to-back at home against the Pittsburgh Penguins and Florida Panthers.
Yeah, definitely. Yep, that's true. So Max Boltman was criticizing most of Yzerman's moves thus far in 1 year as a general manager of the Red Wings. Frank, I passed that article to you guys, you, Breck, and Ed Smith, and Mark Mancini. Frank, I don't know if you got a chance
I actually
to read
have
the
it up
article.
right now. I actually have it up right now, and I did read it. I mean, Boltman mentions that Yzerman has patience. Let's see, draft-wise, he talks about taking Moritz Seider, who I know everybody kind of was up in arms about, saying, what's he doing? Is this going to be the next Ube group? Well, so far, Seider actually has played pretty well in Grand Rapids and actually played pretty well over in the World Junior Tournament for Germany. And plus, my thoughts on that were, this wasn't a win now move. This is more of a move for the long term. So there's really no true verdict in yet, especially since we got to see what he can do more in North America, and maybe sometime down the road he might get called up for NHL duty. And there were some other guys that Boltman evaluated, like Antti Tuomisto, who's averaging a point per game in Finland, and winger Robert Mastrosimone, who's doing pretty decent at Boston University. So it seems like he did pretty well in the draft. Free agency, look, I didn't expect Yzerman to do any big splash in free agency. He was just gonna make some low risk signings that he'll probably end up flipping down the road, like Valtteri Filppula. Everyone said, "Oh, that's a Ken Holland move." If that was a Holland move, he would have been signed to 5 years and $5 million per year. And Filppula's actually been all right. He hasn't been great by any stretch, but he hasn't done the worst thing that's happened. And Patrick Nemeth, defenseman, has played fairly well, and he's having to play more with Danny DeKeyser done for the year, here with a back injury. Calvin Pickard has kind of had a lot rougher going in the NHL as well, and goaltending, I think, is probably going to be something Yzerman's going to have to look at in that trade deadline time, possibly in the draft too, because Jimmy Howard's a free agent. And Jonathan Bernier, I don't think is going to be your starter in the long term. And pretty much who you got in the pipeline is, for whatever reason, fine. And as for the trades, let's say the Robbie Fabry trade, we could say that is true. We could say that's been Yzerman's most impactful trade. Can we agree with that, Taylor?
Well, definitely. Robbie Fabry just keeps scoring goals. He's even picked up a few assists as well. Fabry's been a machine, and I just heard on the latest Wings for Breakfast episode about Robbie Fabry's trade value and stuff like that, which was published earlier tonight by Max Boltman and Prashant Iyer. I don't know if you've caught up to it yet, but it just wanted to throw that out there. It's a podcast on The Athletic hosted by Boltman and Iyer. You can follow them on Twitter at Max Boltman and at Iyer_Prashant, IYER_PRASHANTH. So all that stuff is spewed out there by Boltman and Iyer. Just listen in.
Yeah. So as I was saying, the Fabry for Jacob De La Rose trade has really been Yzerman's best trade to this point. The rest being a mixed bag. A fourth rounder for Adam Ernie, who was one of his guys in Tampa. He hasn't done much offensively, but he's kind of shown that he's a bottom six guy, can play physical as well. And then the David Pope, who was fading in the farm. Alex Biega, who has already played more games in Detroit than Pope ever would have. And then Alec Regula, who was flipped for Brendan Perlini. Seemed to give him some depth, but Perlini's kind of struggled as well. But Regula hasn't really fit in the system in the long term, but we'll see what happens there. But of course, I think what's really got everyone up in arms was the whole Eric Comrie deal. I think that's one we can say, yeah, Yzerman missed on it. And you know what? That's okay. I don't expect Steve Yzerman to ace every trade that he makes. He's human. This is one that he messed up. Comrie was brought in, and he stunk up the joint. The Red Wings decided, they weren't able to get anything for him. They parted ways. He got claimed by the Winnipeg Jets. So there's that. And so we'll see what happens next with him. But it doesn't seem like Boltman was really going all scorched earth on Yzerman. I think he just kind of was evaluating and said, okay, here's the good moves. The Comrie deal was just a bad move. We'll just call a spade here. But at the end of the day, that's how it's going to be at times. Yzerman's not going to hit on every single trade he makes to as pass with flying colors. No GM is perfect. And Yzerman, he made a mistake. And I said, okay, well, move on to the next one. This isn't like the Ken Holland who would refuse to make impactful trades or just sign guys to ridiculous contracts. So those days are long gone.
Yep. And Yzerman made an impactful trade getting Robbie Fabry from the Blues, the Stanley Cup champion
Exactly.
St. Louis Blues.
Exactly. And you referenced the Wings for Breakfast podcast. I mean, truthfully, come deadline move, which I did, I also shared the NHL trade big board via The Athletic. It does mention Andreas Athanasiou as a potential trade chip for the Wings, as he's currently a restricted free agent and is going to need a new deal. But it seems like he could be the odd man out because Anthony Mantha and Tyler Bertuzzi, the latter of which got selected for the NHL All-Star game in St. Louis, are going to be due for huge paydays. Athanasiou is not going to be cheap either, and who knows what Yzerman's going to get in return. So he'll probably he could possibly get a first round pick or a prospect in return for Athanasiou. And then Mike Green, who I know has a lot of miles on his tires as a defenseman. I think Yzerman possibly could flip him into somebody looking for blue line depth or power play help as well, especially a contending team, because that's where Green belongs. He's most effective playing for a contender. So I think, and then you mentioned Fabry. I mean, I think at this point you have to consider everyone on your roster, with the exception of Philippe Zadina or even
Philip Zadina.
Yeah, or Mantha or Bertuzzi. I think you even have to consider Fabry as an option, especially if you can get if the right deal is available, you do it. I mean, I've even heard people say trade Larkin as well, fell to a contender. And my stance on that is, if there's a team that's willing to pay a king's ransom for Larkin, pull the trigger, Steve. But don't just part with him for just a mere first round draft pick. I wouldn't give. I mean, my thoughts are, I really don't want to give them to give up on Larkin just yet, but at the same time, I'm not 100% opposed to saying no. He's untouchable, off the table. The price has to be right, though.
Yeah, but speaking of Larkin, now that you've touched on him, I like to say that he's been throwing way too many fits on the ice, and he's not getting. And how come he's not getting called for unsportsmanlike conduct penalties for those? I mean, I understand Larkin's frustration, but he's got to harness it. He's got to start harnessing it. He's still acting like a petulant child on the ice.
For him, you said he was he not getting called for unsportsmanlike? Because if he's not, that's at the discretion of the on-ice officials. So, I mean, granted, I don't.
Right, but
I don't like seeing him act that way either. But I mean, it's gonna probably take the NHL to step in and do something. But if he steps over the line, he'll probably, and takes it out on the wrong person, then he'll end up receiving a nice little phone call from George Peros, the head of the Department of Player Safety. But I don't think. But until it actually reaches there, I'd say, it's a situation that bears monitoring, and I'm sure Steve might have to intervene and talk to him and say, Dylan, look, I like you a lot. You're the face of this team, but I need you to start acting like it on the ice. You're not irreplaceable. You are not irreplaceable. It's probably gonna take that. And now I think you want to jump to Brian Burke going off about Larkin saying that he doesn't want to play in the All-Star game.
Yes. Yeah. That notification popped up to me, and I read the article. I was like, man, that something's fishy about that. I mean, Dylan Larkin does have a point about the All-Star game not meaning anything because it doesn't count. But all teams have to be represented. That without an All-Star game, there's no fun. I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's because he was mentioned as being part of the last man in guy. And this is what he said to Helene St. James, said, quote, "Please don't vote. I like the days off more." So who knows? My thoughts were, oh, okay, this isn't like Alex Ovechkin saying, I gotta go to the All-Star game. Sorry, screw it. I don't feel like playing. It sounds like like this is something where he'd be voted in by the people. Oh, but I think he just would rather say, I'd rather focus on regular season play, even though things aren't going well. We'd like a little bit of a break from the whole grind, from the grind of the season. And so don't confuse it with Ovechkin, who just says, okay, screw all of you, I'm not going, and then has to serve a suspension as a result. Well, so I kind of think Brian Burke, I take his thoughts for what you will. Berkey ended up saying it's an honor to be part of the All-Star Week. You should get a speeding ticket on your way to the airport to fly this game. Bill Larkin should scoff at it like that. Well, and he says that Ovechkin acquires the right to turn down after he's played at 12 or 15 at international. Well, this is where I disagree with Berkey. He said Ovechkin is kind of just saying, you know what? I don't feel like playing at all because I've been in so many of these before. If Larkin was to get voted in, it would be his second. But who knows? Who knows what really happens here? If he gets voted in and doesn't go, then oh well. I guess he'll have to just take his suspension. But if he doesn't get voted in, then truthfully, it's just a situation that's being made into a mountain out of a molehill.
Yep. Yeah, that's those are valid points. So, yep. Moving on to the Pistons here, they've suffered quite an injury bug. Luke Kennard out at least 2 weeks with bilateral knee tendonitis. He'll be reevaluated January 7th. That was yesterday. Yeah, today is Wednesday the 8th. So Luke Kennard, he was reevaluated yesterday. No word on him yet. But Blake Griffin underwent successful knee surgery. I don't know what that is, but I don't know what's going on your end. But anyway, Blake Griffin.
Yeah, I'm looking to see what happened, but I do know I know he's had knee problems in the past as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's likely to be done for the rest of the season.
Yes.
Yeah. Media outlets were saying that there was no timetable for his return, but that just gives you a hint that he's likely done for the rest of the season. Blake Griffin has not been taken care of well enough by this Pistons team, but we wish that the Pistons rested Blake Griffin more to make sure that he's 100%, but they haven't been doing that. That's been typical. It's been happening too many times. Plus, the Pistons have been trying to listen to trade offers involving center Andre Drummond, and that could be a sign that the Pistons are trying to rebuild with a more competitive roster. That's what I've been hearing on paper. And
I've kind of heard the same thing too, and I think we had mentioned in our chat that the Atlanta Hawks were a team, get somebody who can play pick and roll with Trae Young. And there, I think even Boston and Toronto were mentioned as well.
And Dallas.
Yeah, and the Mavericks. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, Atlanta's got some nice players that would be that could be made available. Oh, I think Ed had mentioned John Collins, who's currently serving a PED suspension. So who knows? The Hawks will look to move on from him. And Kevin Herter, who's one of their better shooters. Hers would be somebody. And then I think even Cam Reddish or DeAndre Hunter, although they might be a little bit higher up. But I mean, I wouldn't mind getting one of those guys. Because Drummond, I think, has got to get moved out, and you got to get assets for him. I also think Derrick Rose is possibly a good trade chip, especially a team that's looking for depth at point guard, especially a contending team as well. So I think the Pistons pretty much have to consider moving everybody. I mean, even Kennard, even Luke Kennard, I think they should consider as well, because what he's due for a raise, he's probably going to get paid a lot more down the line, and probably make upwards of $150 million, even though I don't think he's worth that much. But I wouldn't pay him that kind of money if I was Pistons front office. So I think you've got to consider moving pretty much everybody, with the exception of Sekou Doumbouya, who has played recently for the Pistons, and I will admit he has actually played pretty well.
Yep, he has. Who are we talking about? That last player that you mentioned?
Sekou Doumbouya, who was the
Sekou Doumbouya.
The Pistons drafted, and I know there were some people who were kind of up in arms about that, like, who is this guy? It's another project. And when you really look at it, he was somebody who was taken more for long term. And granted, he's done well, and when he's been given minutes, so hopefully he continues to keep developing, and then maybe he ends up becoming a star. But I think he's probably one guy you say hey, is untouchable at this point.
Yeah, that's true. And then Sekou Doumbouya. We've been hearing that he's probably going to start for the rest of the season. That's also one thing to keep note of. It's very good. It's I think that's a good move by the Pistons, who are trying to carry on the best they can without Blake Griffin and Luke Kennard. Andre Drummond, they've been hanging on for him for too long. We got 10 minutes left, and just about gonna end it like 2 minutes past the top of the hour. At 11 o'clock, we're gonna end at 11:02. So moving on to college basketball, Michigan State Spartans just crushed the Michigan Wolverines 87-69. Cassius Winston 32 points. MSU outshot U of M 52.8% to 36.2% from the floor, including 46.7%, 7 of 15, to 21.7%, 5 of 23 from 3-point range, plus 72.7%, 24 of 33 to 63.6%, 14 of 22 from the free throw line. The Spartans out-rebounded the Wolverines 43-34 and outblocked them 12-5. They outblocked them 12-5. State did commit 13 turnovers, 9 of them just about, which were in the first half, while the U of M committed only 10. The Wolverines came up with 7 steals, whereas the Spartans got only 3. But the Spartans had the lead the entire game. And now with that 87-69 win, the Spartans have climbed up to 8 in the AP poll, while the Wolverines have sunken down to 19th in the AP poll rankings. It's and this just proves why the Spartans have been a better basketball team than the Wolverines have. Juwan Howard, his first year as head coach of the Wolverines, still has some learning to do in his first year of experience as a head coach of any basketball team at any level. Frank, I'll give you 3 minutes on that, and then we'll dive into some bowl game action in rapid fire form. Then we'll go to the closing statement. Go.
Well, I ended up watching this game on Sunday, and I was fairly impressed with the way that Michigan State was able to get a lot of offense, especially from Cassius Winston, who I'd say he has clearly established himself as one of, if not the best player in the nation, and with 32 points. And also, Michigan State has basically taken sole possession of first in the Big Ten over Maryland and Rutgers. Who would have thought that was coming? They had 4-0 in conference play. And plus you mentioned them blocking shots as well. Xavier Tillman's becoming and really good at shot blocking. Same with Marcus Bingham Jr. as well. I think Michigan State, I know people thought that they were kind of getting off to a rough start. They lost to Kentucky, then lost inexplicably to Virginia Tech and Maui, and then ended up losing to Duke. But I think now they've kind of got things rolled along and for the time that the grind of Big Ten season rolls around. Now, they're not going to, for any Spartan fan listening, they're not going to run the table in the conference. They're going to trip up because we've seen that winning on the road in the Big Ten is pretty tough to do this year. And with that being said, from a schedule standpoint, Michigan State will be at home against Minnesota tomorrow night at 9 o'clock on ESPN2. They should win that. If they do lose a game coming up, they do have to play at Purdue on Sunday at noon. And Mackey Arena is always a tough place to play, even though Purdue is really missing Carson Edwards this year, who is now with the
those
Celtics. Yeah, so I mean, Purdue's always tough to play at home. They'll have Wisconsin at home on the 17th, and then have to go to Indiana to Assembly Hall, which Indiana's just seemingly had their number for the last couple of meetings. So I mean, I think, or their next loss could possibly come on January 26th when they play their second game against Minnesota up at the Barn. So there's still some potential landmines on Michigan State's schedule where they could trip up. So they just gotta go out and be focused and take care of business. And as for Michigan, and I think Juwan Howard is kind of having to learn a lot as a college head coach as well. I know John Teskey has probably been Michigan's best option scoring the ball, but they are missing Isaiah Livers, who's out indefinitely with a groin injury. No word on when he returns. So Michigan's schedule, they host Purdue tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. And then have back-to-back road games against Minnesota and Iowa, the next two, before they close. And the rest of January, they're home against Penn State, who has been ranked in the top 25. Home against Illinois, that's a get-back game for them because they lost the Illini. And then at Nebraska, who knocked off Iowa last night. So they've got tough games as well. I still think Michigan could very well. They still have a good chance to make the NCAA tournament, but I think they may have to go win a couple of these tough games on the road, especially probably against Minnesota or even Iowa or Penn State. Hey, but we'll see what happens. And you can't win the Big Ten or clinch an NCAA tournament bid in January, but you can lose it.
Yeah. And then we got the bowl games. Michigan State edge Wake Forest 27-21, and then Michigan losing to Alabama 35-16. Frank, we got about 5 minutes left. Each one of them up in like 3 minutes, and then we'll go to closing statements.
Well, I'll start with Michigan State. I mean, they had a little bit of a slow start against Wake Forest, and then the Mike Panashuk interception return kind of gave them some life. They ended up trading touchdowns, and then they finally took the lead for good in the third quarter and pretty much were able to shut Wake Forest down. I still think, I mean, for Michigan State, it's at least a nice ending to what's kind of been a rough season. And going 6-6 when you had aspirations of winning the Big Ten East, getting to Indy. So, granted, it's a good finish, but I still think you got to make changes in the offseason, especially from a staff standpoint. I don't know what Mark D'Antonio is going to do at this point, or if he's even going to do anything at all. But the big thing is they've got to find somebody to replace Brian Lewerke at quarterback. And right now, I don't have a ton of confidence in Rocky Lombardi or Theo Day or just Peyton Thornton, who I hear good stuff about, but he's unproven. Are going to have to probably see how they do in spring practice and the spring game so we can see what they're looking at down the road. As for Michigan's game against Alabama, truthfully, that was kind of a no-win situation to begin with. If Michigan would have won that game, it would have been because Bama rested a lot of their guys who were sitting out just to prepare for the NFL draft. And if they lost the game, which they did, it's basically just another black mark on Jim Harbaugh not being able to win a big game. Now, that being said, they did jump onto a nice start, going up 16-14, and then Bama just seemingly took over her from there. And Mac Jones torched Michigan for 327 yards and 3 touchdowns, no picks. Najee Harris ran for $136 and 2 scores. And Jerry Jeudy, either wide receiver, 204 yards on 6 catches and a score. So I think it really showed that Alabama was clearly the better team. And as for Michigan, then they've got a lot to determine in the offseason as well, because Shea Patterson is gone on after this year. Does Dylan McCaffrey become the starter next season? Or does Joe Milton become the starter? Or does Harbaugh do what Harbaugh has done and go after a transfer QB because he seemingly cannot develop his own guy? And now, as for the other offensive players, I think running back wise, Charbonnet and Haskins are their 2 best options going forward unless somebody else steps into the mix. Receivers, Donovan Peoples-Jones is gone. But Nico Collins returning, I think, is good because he says he wants to finish out his eligibility and get his degree.
Center Cesar Ruiz is gone.
Yeah.
The NFL draft.
So, I mean, that's nothing to just blow off as well. And in other defensive losses, Josh Uche is declared for the NFL draft. And I believe Lavert Hill is a senior. And Kaliki Hudson is also gone as well. So there's going to be guys that have to replace him. Also, Harbaugh's going to have to get some new assistants as well, as Chris Partridge, the safeties coach, who was one of his top recruiters, is gone now as well. So Michigan's going to have some work to do this offseason. We'll see what happens come springtime when spring practice rolls around.
All right. So our closing segment, Frank, I'll give you 30 seconds this time. Go.
My closing statement will relate to what I have said about college basketball with Michigan and Michigan State. Michigan State off to a great start in Big Ten play, being the last unbeaten team. But Spartan fans, please remember, you cannot win the Big Ten in January, but you can lose it. As for Michigan fans, 1 and 2 start right now. There's some things you got to get better at. But truthfully, I still think you have your opportunities. He's there. Just stay focused on the task at hand. It's not going to be defined by one game of the season. There's a lot more left to be played.
All right, Frank, thanks very much. You were the only guy to help me on this episode. Hopefully Ed joins us next week. We apologize to our listeners that we were not able to get him in for some reason, but scour the Stables Network's website, primetimewiththestablesnetwork.com, along with its YouTube channel, and subscribe to it. Plus, like the Stables Network on Facebook, follow it on Twitter, Periscope, and at Stables Network, and on Instagram at the Stables Network. Also, follow the Stables Network on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Castbox, Deezer, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Blog Talk Radio, and on YouTube as well. To listen to our episodes, check out our show's website, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast.com. Also, like its Facebook page, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Follow its Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at Michigan_Truth. On behalf of Ed Smith, follow him on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at EdSmith313. I'm Taylor Phillips, along with Frank Vasner. Follow me on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at DT2Phillips. Follow Frank Vasner on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at Frank_Vasner. Our first episode of 2020 is in the can. We'll be back next Wednesday from 10 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Until then, thanks very much for downloading and sharing. And remember, the truth is out there. We rest our case. TCFN, ta-ta for now. Bon appetit. Hit them with a hind.